In a small countryside village, 19-year-old Daniel spent his days thinking about the future. He had ambitions that reached far beyond the town's borders, dreaming of a life that looked nothing like his current one. But Daniel had a specific habit that kept those dreams at a distance. He was waiting for a perfect moment to begin, a day when he'd feel completely ready, and the path forward would be flawlessly clear. This created a daily loop of excuses. Every evening, he promised that tomorrow would be the day he finally worked harder. Every morning, he told himself that the next day he'd wake up earlier. But that idealized tomorrow never actually arrived. When we focus only on the scale of our ambitions, the immediate, small steps often feel insignificant. This creates a vacuum where we stay paralyzed, waiting for a massive change that never comes because we haven't started the engine. One morning, long before the sun cleared the hills, Daniel visited the farm of Mr. Thomas. At 70 years old, the man was already in the fields, moving with a steady, quiet energy that Daniel couldn't understand. Daniel asked him directly, how did he maintain that level of discipline and drive every single day for decades? Mr. Thomas didn't answer right away. He reached into the dirt, picked up a single tiny seed, and held it out for Daniel to see. He pointed toward the massive oak trees bordering the field. He noted that none of those trees became mighty in a single season. They grew through small daily doses of sunlight and rain, and he told Daniel that people change in the exact same way. He gave Daniel a simple rule to follow: just become 1% better every day. Like a tree drawing in tiny amounts of water to build a massive trunk, building character requires small, daily inputs rather than a single dramatic transformation. The next morning, Daniel stopped trying to overhaul his entire life. He stopped looking for the perfect moment and focused only on the immediate one. His first move was small. He set his alarm and woke up exactly 10 minutes earlier than usual. That was his first 1%. The next day, he added 10 minutes of reading. Then he started cutting back on the time he spent on distractions, replacing those minutes with the study of new skills. He eventually added a few minutes of exercise to his morning. To anyone watching, these actions looked trivial. There was nothing dramatic or impressive about reading for 10 minutes or waking up slightly earlier. This chart shows the logic of that progress. For the first few months, the improvement is almost invisible. The line stays flat, hugging the bottom of the graph. But as those 1% gains begin to compound, the curve eventually enters a sharp upward spike. Real change doesn't come from the intensity of a single week of hard work. It comes from the consistency of small actions that most people give up on before they see the curve start to turn. This is the hardest part of the process. In the early stages, your efforts show almost no tangible results. On this scale, the line looks like it's hovering at zero. This is where Daniel faced the most friction. The villagers saw his tiny changes and laughed. They didn't see how 10 minutes of reading or a slightly earlier morning could possibly change a person's life. Daniel didn't try to convince them. He simply stayed quiet and maintained his routine, choosing to trust the process of daily improvement rather than seeking immediate approval. Over time, the internal resistance began to fade. Waking up early or picking up a book stopped feeling like a chore he had to force himself to do. It slowly became a natural part of his daily rhythm. A year passed. The village was the same, but the way people spoke about Daniel had changed. Those 10-minute sessions had quietly accumulated. The time spent learning had developed into actual expertise, and the consistent exercise had changed his physical presence. The villagers weren't just seeing a harder worker. They were seeing the result of 365 days of unbroken discipline. At sunset, Daniel returned to Mr. Thomas. They sat together near the fields where the old farmer had first handed him the seed. Daniel realized that his life hadn't changed because of one big break or a lucky moment. He asked the farmer to confirm it. Was it really just the sum of those tiny daily improvements? The person we become is rarely the result of a single choice. It is the lagging measure of the habits we repeat when no one is watching. Mr. Thomas looked back at the oaks. He reminded Daniel that the trees didn't care about the village's opinions or the speed of the seasons. They simply took in their daily sunlight and water, And over decades, that consistency built something immovable. A great life isn't a single event you stumble into. It's built through the steady accumulation of small actions, which eventually makes the perfect moment irrelevant. If you can manage to be just 1% better today than you were yesterday, you aren't just changing your schedule, you are letting time do the heavy lifting of turning small efforts into extraordinary results.